past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this, and onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Your Monday night's worth of racing starts right here with us on RaceSpotTV, and it is all about championships to talk about, with just 2 rounds of racing remaining in this season, or as we know, 4 races left. You have to note that this is the last chance saloon for drop rounds to put themselves into the picture. We head to one of the circuits of circuits out there to put together some of the most beautiful racing action out there. The circuit of the brothers Rodriguez, the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, and formerly the Lady Magdalena Mixica. This circuit of magic here with us on RaceSpotTV. Jake Sperry and Jeremy Scott looking to bring you all of the coverage here today. And Jeremy, what a circuit this has proven to be. An old classic, a revitalized new classic out there, and simply put, a magical place for action.
It really is. It's one of my favorite circuits internationally, no matter what series races there. And it's going to be very interesting because this is essentially a wild card for these drivers, as this is a newer track on the sim. So drivers really haven't had too much of a time to play on it like we have the rest of the series. But I'm really excited to see how the drivers will take part in this.
This is the last technical of the season, so that will be a 30-minute race as a sprint, which leads, of course, over to the feature of an hour. So they'll have that before we hit the banks of the Daytona International Speedway, the home of motorsport for many out there when January rolls around, but that will be 7 days from today. So keep an eye out on that, on what has been a truly brilliant season to keep everything all in mind. Championship at the top of Pro could not be closer between James Boomey and Alexander Davidson, who traded wins last time out. James Boomey to the good by just 6 championship points. Ross McFarlane is a little ways back in third, ahead of Anders Mira and Michael Evdoka, with Matthias Pirinen in 6th, ahead of Arthur Thurtle in 7th. It is then Adam Watson in 8th, ahead of Dennis Grabowski, with Harrison Crowther rounding out the top 10 in division. In Pro-Am, it is now 105 points to William Guthrie over Aiden Carter. All he needs to do is have 4 finishes, you'd feel like, for Guthrie, and the championship's in his back pocket, with Carter 2nd and Tommy Vettel there in 3rd. Tommy Fast looking to be best of the rest, ahead of Michael Gray and Phil Samways, as Håkon Eide Lindmo is 6th, ahead of Dickie Simnor and Tom Griffiths. Chris Chatterton is 9th in the championship, ahead of Patrick Falconer, who rounds out the top 10. Over to Am, where it is still that 2-horse race between Daniel McCauley and Ben Altria, but 45 points between them means that they are just trying to nudge against each other and see who is going to chip first, and it looks like Ultra is running out of chances. Jesse Payne Wilkins still remains 3rd in the championship, ahead of Jacques Eva and Joe Coffin, with Adam Hedgecock in 6th. Paul Smith up in 7th, ahead of the 2 Bens, Benjamin Gregory and Ben Bennyworth there for Quartermass Motorsport, and Brian Loynes there rounds out your top 10. As far as the pros go, it is all but locked up in team standings by WSR Esports, ahead of Altitude Frame Racing Lab Esports, Altitude Esports by SimStickers, and then Nomad in 5th. Atomic Esports x DCW are 6th, with the 2nd of the Atomic Esports cars team, in 7th, as Effect Simulations and Solpec Precision Racing make up the 8 and 9. It's then over to Team Am, where it is turning the way of Full Tilt v Motorsport, ahead of Series 1 Racing. It is then Full Tilt Motorsport then in 3rd, with Altitude Frame Esports Mr. Hedge, Boosted Motorsport, Project 91 Academy team, and Effect Simulations Club Sport that make up the 7 in that category. Qualifying has already gone and got dusted, but Alexander Davidson got the key qualifying done. He's ahead of James Boomey, so they're side by side on the front row. Harrison Crowther and Ross McFarlane are 3rd and 4th, with Anders Mira 5th, and Aiden Carter, the best of the Pro-Ams, great qualifying from him, in 6th. Michael Evdoka and Ben Ultra, what a qualifying there in Am, to go 8th, with Arthur Thurtle 9th, and Phil Samways rounding out your top 10. William Guthrie, the Pro-Am leader, starts in 11th, with Adam Watson there in 12th. 13th belongs to Tommy Fast. Tommy Vettel in 13th, with Dennis Grabowski 14th. Is then your AM Championship leader Daniel McCauley and Joe Coffin there in 16th place, as the Atomic DCW cars of Patrick Falconer and Dickie Simnor are on row 9. Your top 20 rounds out by Michael Gray and the Was Cooking Racing Adventures car of Elliot Roberts, with Tom Griffiths and Brian Loynes on row 11. Jacques Eva and Taylor Lane 23rd and 24th. It is then Howard Hassan and Paul Smith then in 26th, with Ben Bennyworth and Adam Hedgecock on row 14. Håkon Eide Lindmo a little bit lonely in the Nomad car in 29th, with John Roberts 30th. It is then the cars who could not set a qualifying time, which are Matthias Pirinen through penalty, Ben Gregory, Jesse Payne Wilkins, Drew Fletcher, Colin Sansom, and then Nathan Healy at the back for Full Tilt v Motorsport in the 187. It is, of course, one of the newer circuits out there. They've only had a couple months to understand this Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez here, Jeremy, but the big key on a 26-degree track temperature here today in early morning conditions is actually the height today. We are in Mexico City, one of the highest capital cities in the world. It is going to take about 20%, I would say somewhere between 10 and 20% of the top speed out of everyone's car today, just because of how thin the air is.
And that's what produces some of the great racing that you see. Not to mention, too, there are several times where these drivers are going to be full throttle for longer than they are in any kind of circuit, because you have to stop and think. Coming off the Peraltada into turn one, that is, I would say, what, almost a full mile down that long straightaway. Then you go onto another straightaway headed into the Esse del Lago, and then another one before the stadium section. So it's going to be a race of speed. But as you said, 10 to 20% of top speed taken away because of the thinner air. And I think this is the highest racetrack on any circuit around.
It is, and it's definitely the highest on the iRacing service by some distance out there. I think it catapults itself about 5 times over with how critical that is as they go through. Now running through the difficult middle sector of the lap, the Esse del Lago, over to the Horquilla there. So the Horquilla is going to be something very tight. And then the S's section, which comes along before the Recta del Ovalo, and of course the fabled marquee of what makes this stadium so special, this circuit so special, like a stadium, the Forosol.
Yeah, the Forosol is absolutely fantastic because it's one of the very few places that you actually race into what was a baseball stadium. So that's going to be something these drivers are going to have to manage around. Yeah, you've got Sector 2, Sector 3, which are going to be very tight at the end of them. So I'm excited. This is going to be an absolute fantastic race. And I think this 30-minute race is going to be about the same as the hour race that we'll see later on the show.
Well, knowing that Harrison Crowther is there in third, he's not scoring for the team's championship, so there's going to be a lot of work to be done by the likes of Dennis Grabowski and Matthias Pirhinen, for example. But Alexander Davidson knows he's not bothered about that team's championship. Neither is James Boomey. They are looking just at honours for overall out there today. They will work themselves now through the final corner, which is the Peraltada, which leads them on to the main straight here today. The pace car already in. Let's get ourselves set. The launch then is good out there on the front by Alexander Davidson, and we are underway at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez for round 19 of the World GT Championship, and immediately they try and find their lines to make it work. They got clearance at the front, but it's too wide as they go in towards, for the very first time, the Moises Solana S's, and critically, there is clearance needed through turn 3 and 4, and no one using the F1 line through the grass.
I was just about to say that the Max Verstappen line was not used, and I'm waiting for the last car to go through. Everybody makes it through. The S is clean. Now they set themselves up for Esse del Lago, the heavy braking zone. A lot of too-wide action going on. You're on board with Daniel McCauley, looking pretty good so far, and you see how tight he has to turn into that right-hander around, heading into Horquilla, as everybody trying to inch for some sort of space, but so far looking pretty good.
Yeah, it's looking decent out there in terms of the start of this race. So I would say they're going to be very happy with the way that this has gone without too many dramas. To speak, just as I say, without too many dramas, a couple cars off through the S's. Paul Smith, one of them, then the Atomic DCW car of Patrick Falconer dives down the order.
Yeah, already the commentator's curse taking effect, but still, look at Daniel McCauley trying to hold off Tommy Vidal, and that's not going to happen so far as they work their way through the stadium section. You're on board with John Coughlin. Take a look at all what we mean by the stadium section. A little bit of a spin, and McCauley's involved, as that was a little bit of netcode there as the car disappeared, and then McCauley spun going through there. And what tragedy as we start this, because we know how tight that points battle is for McCauley.
Well, I think that there was contact before there was anything of that ilk, so McCauley on a half-hour race has no time to recover. There's the look into turn 1, and the pass then holds itself steady as they go through. Anders Mira there in 6th position, trying to deal with Harrison Crowther out there. Docker up to 4th. Boomey has lost 2nd, and Ross McFarlane, the ever-dependable deputy of Alexander Davidson, is now in that 2nd place. So critical there, and there goes one of the Nomad cars. Is that Taylor Lane there who was in trouble? I'm not quite sure who it was. It might have actually been Lane who is the one looking the wrong way, but a difficult start for racing action for some, but in half an hour we know these races are frantic and you have no time to think, you just drive.
Take a look at a replay of at least one of the incidents. That looks like that was Falconer who was in that first one. Then not sure what happened with Paul Smith. He just spun on his own going through the S's. So I know that Paul's been having some difficulty with the BMW, but nonetheless able to go through. This is the Daniel McCauley incident that we mentioned through the stadium. And yeah, there was a little bit of bumping there. And that car, if your car's unsettled, it's just going to have to go for a ride because you have to be perfect through this section.
Oh, absolutely you do. And so we'll keep an eye out as they go. It was actually Håkon Ida Lindmo there who ran into the troubles, sliding off at turn 3 without anything to go with there, just clipping that inside curb, the anti-cut, and then that turns it into troubles out there. Along the main straight then, we go with many a driver looking to prove. Tom Griffiths here in 20th position, looking at Elliot Roberts, trying to figure out whether I can go and make a move and gain this run. The slipstream ever so important on a slightly unstraight straight as they go over once again to the Moises Solana and trying to work through the 1, 2, and 3 corners out there on track, trying to attack over. And you do need to be aggressive with the curbs around this circuit. This is a track that has, for a lot of it being said, oh, it's a high-speed thrill ride and you got to go 1,000,000 miles an hour. It's actually really, really technical. It challenges everything.
It really is. And of course, I can remember about 10, 15 years ago when the NASCAR O'Reilly Auto Parts Series race there, they had a chicane in between the last turn and the first turn just to kind of cut down the speed to going into turn 1 for those stock cars. And Champ Cars use that as well. So this could have been a lot more technical than it really is, as we're on board with Dennis Grabowski trying to chase down William Guthrie for 11th spot. Also have Taylor Lane falling through the field as well, but his little battle there that he's in, it looks like that there's just a lot of drivers within 1/10 of a second of each other. But this is a very technical course as we take a look at a replay.
And Loynes was there behind, just trying to tip the car in. Nowhere to go for it, and then across the middle of the circuit there, did very, very well to avoid everybody in that scenario. Had to wait for the whole train to go through and then reversed it back up to get back up to speed again. You can see those Tech Pro barriers there on the right-hand side, avoiding those without any trouble at all. 1.4 to the good now for for Alexander Davison over at Ross McFarlane. We go back to Michael Ebdoka here in 6th position, who's working this train on the back of these drivers right now. Aidan Carter and Ben Altria, your Pro-Am and Am leaders. Nearest Pro-Am is 11th in William Guthrie. Nearest Am right now to Ben Altria is in 18th. He's got 10 places on the next leading Am, and that will pull him right back up in the championship to Dan McCauley.
Yeah, Dan McCauley could not have asked for any worse sort of luck with Altria sitting up there in the top 10 and McCauley way back in the back of the pack. Let's see, where is McCauley right now? He's back in 34th spot, still trying to catch up to Taylor Lane, who was also a beneficiary of that spin that we just saw. So this couldn't have been a worse sort of scenario for the driver, the number 21 Series 1 Mustang. We got a trainer.
That's Ben Altria, the Am leader. We were just talking about him side by side. Arthur Thurtle died down the inside, and suddenly all that margin is gone.
Ah, man, what tough luck. But then again, Altria still has a lead. We've got Benjamin Gregory with issues as well through the S's. So the S's are just claiming drivers left and right. Mira goes around Harrison Crowther. Now Crowther goes high, so the wingman that Boomy needed is out.
Thurtle down the inside, tags the rear, and Altria sees everyone scatter, including his Pro-Am teammate there, William Guthrie, that he was just able to get by. And again, out of the Hawkia and into this next section, James Boomy now fights hard for 2nd place, side by side the bottom of the screen. Gregory going for a slide, and gets run over by, I believe, Drew Fletcher. That was there going through for Gregory, so that hurt. But critically, through will try James Boomy. He won't get a second chance here into the Esse del Lago, down the Transera, and so he will start thinking about next time he's going to get it. They've lost so much time. It's just simply for James Boomy in this race. I've got to get by Ross McFarlane. If I don't, my damage limitation is exacerbated, and I'm letting the 55 into this championship.
And that's not something that he wants to do. You see Matthias Pirinen also thick in the battle between he and Ben Altria, as Altria trying to do damage control of his own. Now the only thing between he and Joe Coffin is Dicky Simnor, as you're trying to see Altria put another car between he and Coffin for that lead in the AM category. So what once was promising has really turned into sour grapes for the AM class.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the way that Ben Ultra drove that. That was Arthur Thurtle, and that's what happens when you dice the pros. You go for gaps, you leave slight opportunities open, you've got to really work hard. There's Brian Loynes going wide in the Altitude Esports by Mr. Hedge car. You can see the cow print on it as he works himself through the S's. Now, it's a four-part S's, and you're going to see it a lot there, and we've seen it a couple times already. Drivers look at that curve, and it is a little bit narrow, and you can hook it if you're not too careful. Brent Gregory exiting the pit. Side by side goes William Guthrie. He's trying to get by Adam Watson for the pass. Down the inside isn't going to work. Watson just leans into the corner, takes it back in the McLaren, and it might be a good day for the McLaren right now with that long straight.
Exactly. You know what? This is a fantastic day for the McLarens because of the top-end speed that they will have. I don't think they'll be affected too much by the loss of air with the height as we go. Thought we were going to see a side-by-side battle, but that's going to give Grabowski a chance to go to the inside, and indeed he does get around Samways into 11th. Now sets his sights on 10th as Samways is just going to tuck in behind.
Yeah, a good pass through the Horkia to get that done. Samways then can only watch from behind with Tommy Fast there and Michael Gray. So Tommy Vettel will be looking to try and jump on up the order, but every place will matter, especially for Aiden Carter, because Harrison Crowther has just dived through again, making the pass this time on the Avalo straight into the Foro Sol. And so now that will be 6th again for Crowther, 7th for Aiden Carter, and that Lamborghini has been hot and cold this season, still in with an outside chance of the championship. But when William Guthrie is just looking to finish, priority is going to be there, and that's troubles again, but this time it's the other car, it's the deputy, Jesse Payne Wilkins.
Yeah, once again, the S is just catching someone out as we're watching McFarlane trying to hold off James Boomy. Take a look at the replay on the upper hand, and yeah, there, once again, the curbing is just biting some of these drivers, but Boomy trying to do all he can to get back up into McFarlane to try and make some sort of pass. And this is what's interesting, is everybody doing their best to go around the S's and try and make a pass. We see Grabowski closing in on Guthrie.
It's for a top 10, so Grabowski will know how important it is to get this pass. He looks underneath the full tilt rear spoiler, later on the brakes, then into that Del Lago SA out there, and easy done is the pass, and Grabowski can stamp on the power, get himself enough clearance going through the Horkia, and then off and away with Phil Samways just behind, then watching wistfully at what will be going on next. So with 18 minutes and 40 seconds to go, aggression factor has been important to note in the early stages of this race, because I look around in GT spec around here, it's very easy to drive this track formula style because you just flick the car through the corners and the downforce that you have does everything that you want it to. In GT spec, you have less aerodynamic downforce, you're reliant on the mechanical grip, and so when you're dancing on the limit, there really isn't anywhere to unwind the car in some very important sections. Out on the brakes, through the Peraltada, and back onto track again.
I will say, you know, one person that this battle we're watching benefits right now is Aiden Carter, because that puts another car between them and second place in Pro-Am William Guthrie. But yeah, this has got to take a totally different driving style, because a lot of these tracks that we raced on, they're more of a sports car track. This is more of a Formula car circuit, and that is why everybody loves this racetrack. If you have open wheel cars, GT cars, it might be just a little bit more difficult. We're watching on board with James Boomey. Look at the focus that he has once again, trying to chase down Ross McFarlane, but I feel like it's going to be maybe too little too late unless McFarlane puts a toe out of the line, because he's already lost a half second to the WSR Esports Mustang, but they've also lost about 4 seconds to Alexander Davidson, your leader.
I did go outside. I noticed that the window is half a crack open. I did go outside today where I am, and it is bitterly cold outside. So he is getting a nice cool breeze that is going through right now, keeping him up to date with what he needs to do. As Denis Grabowski's dropping down the order now. As there he is in the barriers through the S's. He's gone for a spin. He's over collected again through the first left. And so as he's tried to get it, the car just snaps around. You watch it here. So he's into the corner. He just gets it going sideways, and then he gets that over influx of grip, a tank slapper.
As I say, you saw that wiggle coming off the first curve there of the S's, and I think that's what kind of unsettled the cars. We see Elliot Roberts closing in on Joe Coffin for 18th overall. Icon Ida Lindbo having some problems as well, falling down just a couple of spots with Faulkner, Loynes, and Payne Wilkins going around him. But yeah, man, this has got to be the story of the race right here, is trying to keep the S's in one straight line.
It's very tough to do, and there is going to be movement everywhere on circuit to try and get passes. Crowther and Evdoka fighting Fletcher off the road with a slowdown, as everyone has to fight in the rear as they exit the Forest-Sol and into the Peraltada. Colin Sansom we focus with here, who's trying to just pick his way through. Oh, sorry, Colin Sampson, but just in front of him by a few positions. Howard Hassan, the Welshman, they're having to pick through Jesse Payne Wilkins and Brian Loyne. So Fletcher then sliding it about, takes a big hit going through, now has to figure out where to go, and as he crosses back across the circuit, that's declared as a cut, so he has to jam on the brakes to go back going again, and so there that slowdown gets cleared and going once more. But again, this is a tough day for the Series 1 cars. I think every one of them has been involved in something in this sprint.
Yeah, it seems just like it. So hopefully they can get it together for the hour race, because, yeah, this now makes a half-hour race seem long. Think of what's going to happen during the hour race when those Series 1 cars have those issues. So the break's going to be good for them as we start to see our buddy Paul Smith closing in on 22nd place. Patty Faulkner, you're on board with Wrecked Racing BMW, working through the S's. Talk about a recovery drive, but then again, it seems like Smith, even though he had his early incident, Jake, he's made his way up through the field.
He very much has, and he's working through, and just in front of this, that's Dickie Simnor, who sees the place go away, and there's a little bit of drama for Tommy Vettel going into the Peraltada, so that will hurt him in terms of pace. We'll see what happens here as he tried to work himself into the corner. He just lost the rear end, and the car just decided it didn't want to play, and Evdoka now drops down the order a couple places, and a lot more, because he's gone around then at the first chicane with a bit of contact down there at Moises Solana as he was turned across the nose by Crowther.
Yeah, let's take a look at this replay, see what Crowther does, and yep, just a little bit of a bump heading into the second of the S's, and that's all it takes sometimes, is just a little bit of a nudge to really spin. I was thinking it might have been tire issues with tires going away early, but no, nonetheless, it's just a little bit of rubbing is racing as they work their way into the S's. Once again, this is one of the battles near the middle of the pack as well, so we're seeing just a lot of action here happening hard and fast.
Evdoka, Gray, Pierhanen, Altria, and when you want to say what the difference is between where they qualified and where they are, we've got the difference of drivers in this group who qualified 8th and those who qualified 31st in this scrap right now, going on for about 11th place out there overall in this one. So there is a lot here of change, and Matthias Pierhanen to be up 18 places in 17 minutes. He's getting a pass done every minute, and it's not often that you can say you can do that.
No, that's massive, and you know, that's one thing about Pierhanen. If he were to qualify up near the front, I think we would see him with Davidson, McFarland, Boomy, and Mira all season long, but qualifying's been just a little bit rough for this Altitude and Freem esports driver, working his way down the long front straightaway. You can also have a cup of tea as you're coming down here. Oh, gotta set up for turn number 1. So heavy on the brakes through there, and you see the setup through these S's. It is just so tight, and you gotta make sure not to hit the curb too hard, or else you'll get really unsettled.
Very difficult, and then you got this second straight to go to Transera after the Principale to work over to the Esse del Lago. Turns 4 and 5 out there. Michael Gray picks up a black flag out there. That is huge for him, and he's just going to chuck it in the wall and retire it.
Well, that's one way to call it a race, to rage quit, as they like to say. But yeah, Michael Gray with a rare black flag out of him as he cops enough penalty points, what would be a drive-through. Paul Smith falls down to 24th, but he's still in battle with Payne Wilkins, and we're on board with Hakan Ida Lindmo as they work their way into the second sector of this race. Oh, look at that side-by-side.
It's tough because the Horkia, if you go around the outside there, you got to hold, and there's contact for Håkon, who chucks it down the inside, trying to get by Jesse Payne Wilkins, and that's where you see a Pro-Am who's not got much patience with an Am, and Adam Watson now in trouble as he's trying to get himself up to speed then. That's coming through the Peraltada.
Such a tough section to have problems with, because not only is it a tight corner, but you have very limited runoff coming out of there, and Drew Fletcher gets a black flag as well. So the black flag penalties are starting to come in for some of these drivers, and it looks like a lot of them, because they're taking a wheel or two off, and oh man, that spin coming out of there. How did he avoid everybody else? Of course, backed it right into the wall, and he's underway now, but still, talk about some good driving with everybody else trying to avoid him coming out of that blind corner.
I do want to know, it's 16 incident points before the penalties start coming and raining down. So if they're hitting 16 incident points inside 20 minutes, I do worry about what they're able to do in the main race. Daniel McCauley won't mind. He'll be picking up these places, and he needs every single one he can get. He's lining up Håkon Ida Lindmo, the first of 2 Nomad cars in a row. The Nomad McLaren is the one of Lindmo trying to fight for it. And then Taylor Lane is a bit deep there, actually, though, and this is going to be a swarm around here, and that's going to be both places lost for Dan McCauley as Taylor Lane finds himself with the overspeed to get that sorted. So this is where McCauley needs that clearance. He chucks one back at the Esse del Lago here at turn 4. He'll have to go around the outside of 5, and they're going to lean on each other, and Nicky Simnel now gets to the penalty limit.
So that's why 3 drivers in 3 laps that have had some sort of black flag for the penalties. That's not going to bode well for our hour race here in just a little bit. And look at Lindmo and McCauley leaning on each other going into the S's. Once again, rubbing as they work their way left and then right once again. And McCauley gets the better of the two. But wow, that was a little bit of an aggressive move there by the 2 drivers. Nobody wanting to give it an inch.
Taylor Lane couldn't do much as they head on to the oval straight now, heading for the Forosol and the wonderful former baseball field that they drive themselves through. A stadium section of true uniqueness in motorsport, and that battle then sorts itself out. It is worth noting that positions are still being fought for pretty much everywhere out there at this moment, as we see one car going slow, and that is Håkon Ida Lindmo, who runs into trouble and now has to dive into the pit and pretty much parking it.
Yeah, Lindmo calling it a day here with about 8.5 minutes left to go. Let's see what happens. Yeah, just gets on the gas and the back end snaps out, and we saw that on the screen because that battle for position that we've been watching almost was affected by it, as now Howard Hassan trying to hold off Jesse Payne Wilkins while trying to reel in Brian Loins. So this battle for 21st heating up, heading out of Rector Transera.
out to the Transera, into the SA del Lago, and the Welshman Howard Hassan, who is up 3 spaces over the course of this race, is looking to try and jump a few more out there and hope that it is going to be the likes of Brian Loynes he can jump by. With Jesse Payne Wilkins behind, these are some pretty good AM category drivers he's up there and against, and I think this has probably been one of his best showings this season, Howard Hassan.
No, it really has. There's a lot of drivers who are having some great showings here in this race. So, like I said, I had a feeling this was going to be a wild card for some of these drivers because not many have had a chance to race in anger here as Dennis Grabowski tried to close in on teammate Matthias Pirinen for 11th spot. Both of those drivers not having good races themselves, getting wrapped up in incidents or getting into incidents of their own. So I'm sure they're hoping the infer here in about 7 minutes will go in their favor.
Well, this is the key, though, with the invert. It can be as low as 17, it can be as high as about 25, but there is also the threat, of course, Jeremy, of that full reverse grid.
Exactly. So you want it, but yet at the same time you don't want it. So we'll see exactly what happens here at the at the end of this race. But I have a feeling that these drivers just want to get in the top 10, get themselves some good points, and really keep a good point stranglehold that they already have. As we're working our way through the end of this race. But man, there's been a lot of great battles here in this half-hour race. We knew there would be, but at the same time, Jake, these are a lot better battles than even I thought we were going to have.
Yeah, it has been fraught with battles and cars that have been close. Grabowski and Pirinen together trying to work back through the order. Michael Evdoka there. They're on the rear of Phil Samways now, who is in 9th position. So Phil's going to have to try and weigh up what he needs because he's trying to jump up from 5th place in the Pro-Am standings to move up to maybe 3rd by close of play tonight. And if he can manage this way through, it will be absolutely critical in terms of getting this done. A little pull to the outside, and I am faster than you. Pirinen lets Grabowski go.
Well, no surprise there as team orders were in play. Now let's get to that WSR Mustang as Evdoka trying to get around Samways himself for position. And that's going to help out with the team standings as well. Evdoka looks at the inside of Samways. Not going to make anything happen through there. But now you're starting to see the Aston really open up a little bit of a gap over his teammate as they work their way into the 2nd sector. Now these two two-car battles, Jake, are going to turn to a 4-car battle really quick.
They will do if you can't get the clearance. You can see how the gap opens up through the S's. A lack of confidence through these corners and a tiny bit of push. You're really pushing the lines, and you can push the lines here with the track limits going through the S's section as they make their way towards the Furasol and the next right-hander out there on circuit. Turn number 12 it is with 13, 14, 15, and then 16. Sorry, that's turn 13, sorry, with 14, 15, 16 they're through, and now the Peraltada turn 17 out there, only in half of what it used to be, which was a full flow of attack with just 4.5 minutes to go. And Evdoka still trying to line up Samways, but you got a long straight for it.
And this is where drafting is really going to come into play. You have enough room to play going into turn number 1. And should it go wrong, at least you have a decent amount of runoff, but it's all in how you use it. As Evdoka too far away to make anything happen, but that's given the 41 of Grabowski a chance to close in as well. Look at that dive to the inside that Evdoka has on Samways. They're still side by side, but that's also going to give Grabowski a chance to play if he so desires. He sits back behind Evdoka, and I think he may have made the right decision. However, Samways has the line going into the SA del Lago, and now it's back over to Evdoka. This is what's so cool about this track, is that each time your battles, they're going to be basically one-sided either corner.
Well, at the former Magdalena Michuca circuit, it is Samways who loses out then on that move. And now the two altitude cars want to figure out, Pirinen and Grabowski, which way they are going to be making their claim to a top 10 place. Because with Evdoka through, they now sit. It is a 6-second lead for Alexander Davidson at the front with 3 minutes and 10 seconds on the clock. And just behind that, a little look down the inside, a big, contact. Pirinen comes together with Ben Ultra, and Ultra lifts off of it in a form of redress.
Kind of a, hey, you know what? I'm sorry I did this, so keep the position.
Oh, Grabowski's gone around.
And Grabowski has a black flag.
That will be a slam dunk. He's done it all on his own, just trying to put the power down too early through the Peraltada, and he now has to drive in through the pits. And Adam Watson is now with a meatball, and that'll be him out, and it was just behind it.
Oh, man, that's just not what you want to see. Of course, Watson now with a black flag as well, so adding insult to injury for the 291 as he works his way through the circuit. He will fall back into 19th as Grabowski's he's falling out to 17th, so he was able to get that pass through done and dusted. But now Samways, he's not done with Evdoka yet for that 9th place overall. Granted, he's still 3rd in class right now. Samways is, as they work their way out into the Horquilla. And now, with only just a handful of minutes left, it's game on for that 9th spot between Evdoka and Samways overall.
James Boomy has lost 3rd place, so through has gone Anders Mira. I'm trying to have a look, and Boomy has clattered John Roberts in lap traffic. So look at the front, it is absolutely caving off with 1 minute and 37 seconds to go, and it will be 2 laps to go, I think, with the way Davidson is driving. Look at this, Roberts minding his own business, and that is why traffic is so difficult here in Mexico City.
What a change of events as your points leader is set to lose the points here in this 30-minute race, but it's so tight that one wrong move could cost anybody a ding in the points as Boomy trying to just limp home and not cause any further damage, as Harrison Crowther not too far away from there as well. But man, what a change of events as we're under a minute less. A white flag will come out this time by, or we might even get the checker flag depending on when Davidson crosses the line.
This has been a season of twists and turns. Remember, this is the last round in the championship where drivers can drop, because the final rounds at Daytona are undroppable by the rules of this championship. Alexander Davidson is working himself very calmly through the corners. His last lap was a 1:39.5 as he ticks over 210 kilometers an hour before hitting the brakes into the Ferrosol for what should be the penultimate time out here in this race, because now running through towards the Peraltada, he will now go. Checkered flag though is being called. Barney is unfurling it. This has been masterful by a maestro here of Mexico City. Alexander Davidson will take the sprint. They will call the race half a second early.
Well, sometimes that's all it takes as Aiden Carter works their way through the stadium section. It's been feast or famine for the Lamborghini, but the Prancing Bull will ride with pride as they come around the Peraltada. Checkered flag comes out. Aiden Carter is your AM winner.
And we'll look over to Ben Ultra. He's had a tough day. It could have been a lot more points as he had himself the instant in 8th place. He would have got 7th, but 12th. He will still take the AM honours here in round 19 of the championship, knowing, though, that he's not going to get a huge amount on Dan McCauley, but it is enough to put the gap into clear mind. So the last few battles towards the end, Paul Smith going at it late here in this one. This is with Taylor Lane, who's just found a way through.
Yeah, and Paul Smith right now, either way, it's going to be a great finish for him right now, 24th and 25th. You are seeing on the screen between the Mercedes and the BMW of Lane and Smith. Again, out of class because Lane is a Pro-Am driver, and Smith is an AM driver, but through the stadium section, they both have to tiptoe their way through. They've both been having problems all throughout the race, but nonetheless, they're going to make it all the way around through the Peltada and finish in 24th and 25th, so great showings for both of those drivers.
Ben Bennyworth will be the last car on the lead lap, 26th, as he will cross over the line. And so we will now get a chance to look at where the reverse will be for the hours feature that comes along. You can see the wheels spinning and now going to a stop, but it could be a smallest. In fact, it's the third smallest it could possibly be. 17 is the number that's called, so we'll keep an eye on that as Alexander Davidson has got the win by 7.2 over Ross McFarlane, and as Mira will take the final spot on the podium, and James Boomey now on the back foot in this championship of inches as he falls into fourth, as Harrison Crowther and Aidan Carter are fifth and sixth. Carter, your Pro-Am winner. Arthur Thurtle finished seventh, and William Guthrie making sure he's not too far behind in eighth, managing that margin at the top of the Pro-Am standings with Michael F. Docker ninth and Phil Samways rounding out your top 10. Matthias Pirhinen is 11th with Ben Altria 12th. It will now mean that Tom Griffiths and Tommy Vedel are 13th and 14th. Joe Coffin and Dennis Grabowski 15th and 16th. And your pole sitter then for round 20 of the championship is going to be Sharks Eva, the South African, then racing for Rhino Racing. It will then be Dickie Simnor on the wrong side of the divide, ahead of Brian Loynes and Patrick Falconer, who round out your top 20. Daniel McCauley will have to go from 21st on the grid to fend off his AM category honours, as Jesse Payne Wilkins is just behind him, with Howard Hassan and Taylor Lane 23rd and 24th. Lane would just beat out Paul Smith on the final lap, as Ben Bennyworth would be the last finisher on the lead lap, with Colin Sansom, Adam Watson, Benjamin Gregory and Adam Hedgecock all one lap down for the proceedings that have happened. Two for John Roberts, who had a massive shunt with James Boomey, and I'm sure he wouldn't have wanted to be involved in that, knowing the way he drives, as Håkon Ida Lindmo, Drew Fletcher, Michael Gray, Nate and Elliot Roberts, the other cars laps down non-start for Nathan Healy in today's racing. But oh my, as it sits here, Jeremy, I would look at today and say, oh my goodness, we are in for a treat. That hour is going to be so hard fought for, and when you're putting the reverse in and you know it's a bottleneck logjam at the first three corners and then the next two that follow after that, you're just asking for trouble with the reverse.
I'm going to admit I didn't know what we were going to see here in this first race, and I was pleasantly surprised with everything that happened. We saw so much action that I have a feeling that what we're going to see in the second race is going to be double that, and we saw some front runners who encountered problems both at the beginning and the end of the race. So pop some popcorn. We're going to earn for a good race.
Well, if you're going to want to try and earn, you're going to have to do everything you can to step out onto the horizon and go, okay, with a reverse grid, how am I going to stack up? It was clear there in this one as, hello, I'm a little bit bigger now. You got the looks of the likes of Alexander Davidson. He had a wonderful race. So too did Aidan Carter. And so those two will be turning around and going, well, now we're going to have to make progress through the field with our respective classes. But William Guthrie, you know, if this is a bad day for William Guthrie, he's still incredibly consistent.
No, he really is, and that was what was interesting for me is how, you know, some of these front runners were on the back foot in Pro-Am and Am, but nonetheless, it was great to see Aidan Carter at the front once again, and some of the drivers that we don't normally see have good days had really good days. So this hour race, I think, you know, a lot has been learned in this half-hour race that could be translated into the hour race, and now pit strategy we got to throw in as well. So let's see what happens. I think we might see not much of a runaway because of this, but at the same time, the battles are going to come on hard and fast once again, because like we said, it's a freight train going into turn one at the start, and it only gets better from there.
Have you been surprised with the number of spins and incidents that we saw in that first race, Jeremy? Because it looked like everyone was struggling for rear grip out of the corners.
I really was, because, you know, I didn't think that the S's were going to cause as much of a problem. I didn't think the stadium section was going to cause much of a problem. I honestly thought that the first S's there going into 1, 2, 3 were going to be the big issue there. And really, that didn't turn out to be. Everybody got caught up by the S's and how tight that final corner going into the Peraltada is. So it's going to be interesting to see if anybody's learned anything from that. We did see later in the race how everybody stayed off the curves in the S's. So that was good. But yeah, near the end of the race, I think everybody got a little testy coming out of the stadium section. That caught a lot of drivers out by surprise.
Well, we'll see how that goes on the other side of this here with World Sim Racing and the World GT Championship here on RaceSpotTV. Just 3 rounds of racing remain, and round 20 is on the other side of this.
Past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Monday is proving to be a day of hard work, which is now starting to pull itself together. With just 3 rounds remaining in the championship, it is suddenly sit up and take notice, James Boomy. It is a case of Aiden Carter being happy. It is a case of Ben Ultra now hunting down the AM Championship. It's Jake Sperry and Jeremy Scott bringing you through all of the action. And Jeremy, very quickly, what a wonderful run that we are seeing here at the top of this championship. It seems like every time it is two titans and someone gives only a little bit of ground, then someone gives it back. It's like an amazing tug-of-war match.
It really is, and we're seeing two drivers at the top of their game right now who are trying their best to win a championship, and they're just going toe-to-toe. And of course, next week, we're at the World Center of Racing, and that's going to make things interesting, but we still have an hour here at Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez as the drivers are just, it's interesting to watch how they're able to set up their cars and set up throughout the race.
It very much is. And let's take this chance then to talk with one of our drivers. We got RaceSpot's very own Paul Smith, who is along with us right now, who's jumped up into the commentary booth here along for a little bit of a chat here. And Paul, in terms of the day-to-day that these drivers are finding around the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez, when most drivers wouldn't have necessarily practiced this circuit, there aren't many series out there that have said, we'll put this on our calendar. How much of this has been an unknown quantity for many of the field?
Well, it's certainly been an unknown quantity for me because literally the first laps I turned around here was in practice. So, yeah, I think there will be an element of that, of people not being familiar with the venue. That'll be sort of helping to pay towards some of the results that we're seeing here. But the top guys, the people at the front of the field, they're always going to be up there because they find the time to put that effort in and to put the hours in between them and the teammates to really build a setup and get familiar with the circuit.
And so when you're looking around at trying to pick up as many points as you can, just trying to see how many positions you can jump up through the race, I mean, you were talking off camera with us and saying that this was the first time really this season you've had the ability to go out there and battle. What has it been like for you over the course of this season? And I would say the troubles that you have had with your BMW.
The BMW's been terrible. I think a combination of that and me being very rusty in this championship. It is an unbelievably competitive series that I know from doing the commentary for so long. I previously raced in the series way back in season 5, so it's unbelievably competitive all the way through the field. I mean, even in AM, I'm struggling to get up there with the best of them, and it's been a challenge. But this race, I don't know what it is, whether it's a combination of the BMW with how it suits certain types of track. The only section that I really seem to be having struggle with is through the S's, through that section of 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's the bit where the car struggles with a bit of understeer. Everywhere else, it's not too bad, actually.
And I suppose that comes from the nature of the rest of the circuit there, Paul, being quite stop-start.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to look at last week. I mean, okay, I wasn't on the pace as much last week at Montreal, but the nature of that track suited the BMW, and it was the first time that I'd actually felt like I actually had a car that was competitive and could challenge people. So, yeah, it's been fun mixing it with it. I've done some tremendous racing today.
Now, I just want to talk to you about incident point limits, because I think that they do play a very big factor in terms of the racing. There are at least 4 drivers who found themselves over the incident limit of 16 in the sprint race out there, and some managing to hit that within 16 minutes. So is this circuit one where you're naturally picking up incident points, or is it just that the nature of the style of racing has created this cauldron around this circuit where people are picking up more?
I think with the nature of the circuit, how you're having to set up overtakes and try and get duck under and set people up, there's been a bit of contact, especially at the start of the race, and you quickly accumulate some incident points. And then just getting wheels over curbs wrong, just running wide in places, and it quickly accumulates. I mean, I think I got up to about 12 incidents in that first race. So it is easily done, and we only get 4 more incidents for an extra half an hour of racing.
So everyone's going to be on some very high notice then going into this one. Paul, a quick one here from me before we sort of settle down into rhythm, and we'll let you get on with a bit of practice then before the end of this sort of practice window. How high up are you looking to try and reach in terms of this race? Because you'll have a mid-20s position to go and work with.
Realistically, staying somewhere around that 24th, 25th is about where my natural sort of pace and race pace is. It'd be nice to get up into the top 20 again, because last week was the first time I'd made it into the top 20. So yeah, I'd like to get into the top 20 again. That'd be a really good result for me.
Well, Paul, we'll wish you the best of luck when it comes to racing action. Paul Smith there from Cracked Racing, and also a very important member of our team here at RaceSpotTV. Jeremy, they are getting themselves set now. They're about 4 minutes away from the end of practice finding its call, but this has proven to be a championship of inches we have seen at the very top. But it's Am I want to talk about, because this is really the first time I have seen all season where Ben Altria is making such a claim that is going to be legitimately worrying how good Dan McCauley's season has been. In any other season, Ben Altria would be walking it. In this season, he's in a title fight.
He really is, and really, I don't know if that calls to the strength of McCauley or if it just shows how good these two drivers are, because this is, you know, we've seen it in Pro. We haven't talked much about it in AM between these two drivers, but both of these drivers are at the top of their game. It's funny, you take a look at the chat rooms here on the WSR Discord, and it's a lot of Altria for Pro, but I think that these two drivers, I think they're going to take a promotion to Pro-Am next season, because they are just that good. They're constantly battling out with the pro drivers, but there are some moments where they still show that they are AM drivers. So I think a season in Pro-Am might do them some good, but man, this is just such a great battle here for the AM category.
It absolutely is. I mean, I was looking down through the driver chat, Jeremy, and I think Phil Samways feels like he selected an oil tanker out there rather than the car that he's got. So some drivers really having, I would say, a worry about understeer. And it is surprising to see that understeer is the biggest worry in a GT car. We see it so often. It's the rear snapping and oversteer's the issue.
Yeah, exactly, and I think that's part of the problem here, and it took drivers at least half of the race to figure that out, that, you know, maybe we don't need to be pushing as hard through some of these sections where we are seeing a lot of these mistakes. So we'll see how this hour plays out. Will we see as many black flags because of incidents? It's a possibility, but I don't know if it's going to cause any sort of issue, because yeah, we saw a lot of drivers get caught out by the incident points. As Paul said, you only get 4 more incident points leeway than you did in that 30-minute race, so we might see a lot less aggression than we did in that 30-minute race.
There are a lot of drivers who ran into troubles. I mean, James Boomy was one of them, but Harrison Crowther dropped down the order. We saw Dennis Grabowski's issues. We saw the wonderful climb up through of Matthias Pirhinen, but it seemed like almost everybody in and around that top 10 got involved with something. So it is going to be as difficult will be out there overall, as we'll take an eye out on where everyone is managing what. If that's not an omen, I don't know what is. A black flag for Alexander Davidson in practice.
It's practice. We're talking about practice. What would cause a black flag in practice, I wonder? But yeah, nonetheless, it's going to be interesting to see what happens here in race number 2. And I'm going into it with the same naivety that I did in race number 1, because I don't know how this race is going to play out. Like I said, this is the wild card race where nobody's really had a chance to race on it. Not many people, I would imagine, have gotten laps in it before this race. So it's going to be interesting to see if Davidson can continue his streak here of dominating in this racetrack, or if somebody else is going to come up through the front, through the back, and try and show him that you know, it's not as easy as it seems.
It is not, but this is one of the most unique circuits out there in the world of racing here. This is a circuit that has been run for many years. They ran this in Formula One, by the way, back in the late 50s, early 60s. It had some amazing racing then. Of course, came off the calendar. They had more great racing here in the 1980s. And I remember there was a time in qualifying where Ayrton Senna actually flipped it over in the gravel and had to extricate himself out of the Peraltada. But as the checkered flag forms, we won't be able to show you where everyone is, but if you were paying attention from earlier on in our showcase with round 19, you'll know where everyone lines up. So Jacques Siva and Dennis Grabowski will be on that front row, with Joe Coffin and Tommy Vettel third and fourth. It will then follow Tom Griffiths and then Ben Altria, with Phil Samway seventh and Michael Evdoka in eighth. William Guthrie and Arthur Thurtle are ninth and 10th, with Aidan Carter and Harrison Crowther 11th and 12th. James Boomey will go from 13th ahead of Anders Mira, Ross McFarlane and Alexander Davidson, with Dickie Simnor 17th ahead of Brian Loynes, Patrick Falconer and Dan McCauley. It's then Howard Hassan and Taylor Lane, with Paul Smith and Ben Bennyworth 23rd and 24th, with Colin Sansom and Adam Watson, Benjamin Gregory, Adam Hedgecock, John Roberts, Michael Gray, Matthias Pirhinen and Jesse Payne Wilkins make the field. Pirhinen being dragged back out of position and then back to 31st due to penalties there, which are back of grid penalties that need to be served over the course of racing. You can see that the virtual fans are lining the sides of the circuit then as they get themselves ready for the second race of this evening, and knowing that this is the last chance to drop a race if it does indeed go badly. This is a circuit where you are looking around that it's half a car off the track is the limit, and so 4 wheels off the edge is the exception out there. So keep an eye out on turns 3, turns 8 and 9 as well, is to do with the curbing. So you have got to be so switched on to what the limits will be around this circuit. As I will take a look as well here, Jeremy, and note the weather out there. It is 23 degrees air temperature at an in-sim time of just gone at 20 past 3, but a 30-degree track temperature, which I would call ideal for racing in Mexico.
It really is, because you know how hot it can get in central Mexico, with it being very dry in that time. But regardless, this is absolutely fantastic. The tires won't take too much of a beating. The cars won't take too much of a beating unless they decide to run into one another. So great conditions here in Mexico City for some GT racing.
They certainly are, and they are looking to try and get the tires up to temperature as quickly as possible, knowing that they've only got this lap to get it all sorted. And down at the far end of the circuit, this has very similar vibes to another circuit on the Americas continent, and that of course being Interlagos. That this is a circuit, Jeremy, that is very well interwoven with the city of Mexico City itself.
It really is. And you know, you take, yeah, exactly, Interlagos, the only thing different is there's no real elevation change here that like there is in Interlagos, but the city was built around this, so it's really cool to see how close you can get to everything here at the circuit.
I tell you what, they've done very well to find the only piece of flat land in Mexico City. That much I will say is a really strong result for them in terms of what they're going for. But with just 3 rounds to go, all championships still have to find a way of being decided. Maybe the one that is the most easy to work out is the Pro-Am, with the way that William Guthrie has been driving. But behind the BMW M2 safety car, they are now looking at what the end of this season is going to mean. That all these points become more critical. Every position gained is worth more in their value as they set themselves into the Foro Sol here and have an hour on the clock, 20 incident points in the back pocket, and a whole heap of luck required to get the result that is needed, with Jacques Eva in control of the category, you now start thinking, where does everybody else stack up? With the pace car in, they wait for the green flag to drop and the launch of racing to get itself sorted. Either goes, and the green flag out in the air. Grabowski immediately pulls into line. Coffin and Vettel looking to try and find their angles. They run themselves now along the Principe here and go, Principale, sorry, and in towards the S's, Moises Solana.
2-3 wide at the back of the pack. Hold your breath as we make their way.
A big one, straight across the circuit.
So good.
That's massive, absolutely massive, as it's collected a bunch of cars. Then in the opening stages there of that one, a car backwards across the track into the opening section. A disastrous look at that going through. I wonder if it was Harrison Crother, and it was.
Once again, we start off the longer of the two races with a little bit of calamity. Couldn't get away from a race here if we didn't have any sort of issue through turn one, as we're watching lots of side-by-side battles near the front of the pack. But yeah, can't wait to see the replay on that one, because that looked like it was a mess waiting to happen. Thankfully, more cars were not involved in that incident than there should have been.
I'll correct myself of who was the car going backwards. It was James Boomey, who had turned across the nose of Aiden Carter, who had moved across in the braking zone, and that has created carnage out there. Alexander Davidson already up to 10th. Ben Altria through down the inside, moves up to 4th, with Arthur Thurtle and Anders Mira then battling out there for position. If Docker clears Tommy Vettel for that place, the enter, then the Photosol for the first time and looking to leave it for the Peraltada. Davidson scrapping hard with Tom Griffiths, and there's another spin back down there in the Photosol. It looks like one of the AMG Mercedes is pointing the wrong way, and that's Howard Hassan.
We see James Bowie making his way up through the pack as Thurtle trying to hold off Mira for that 7th spot and 3rd in category as we take a look at the replay. And yeah, just backwards, takes out one of the Mercedes, takes out his teammate as well. So already a big mess, and we really didn't get a chance to see exactly where Aiden Carter turned James Bowie, but not the start that our pro leader wanted.
Yeah, 3 separate looks at it. Bang, there's the hit. 1, 2, 3, they all go through. This is Aiden Carter. Perfect look. See, Carter comes across the circuit, pinches, and James Boomey takes the tap, and he almost finds the gap there, but it was just not enough for, I believe, there Phil Samways to avoid that. So dramatic, to say the least. A change now as Jacques Eva fights hard then with Anders Mira around the outside now of the Horkia. It is going to have to be to try and navigate that, and through the S's they go. And thank you very and much. It would have been with the side-by-sides that you got. Alexander Davidson has been looking to work his way around the outside. He's gone deep, and the car's gone around. And it's Macaulay.
Around a little bit of... Not a good past couple of races for Macaulay, but we are seeing Thurtle and Davidson really going toe-to-toe here as Thurtle gets ahead of the WSR Mustang. Not too far behind them are Aiden Carter and William Guthrie for class position. That's for 2nd class, but it is for the battle for the top 10 as Guthrie does get ahead of Aiden Carter in the Lamborghini. But man, Thurtle really putting the elbows out on Davidson.
On his own for Dan Macaulay, everyone scatters around him, so he gets away with it, but he would have heated up the tyres there in the rears, and he doesn't want to get too much excessive wear on them. Grabowski leads him, Docker 2nd, Vettel in 3rd, Altria 4th, and this is the group now behind Thurtle with Davidson, Guthrie, Carter, McFarlane's in here, got Tom Griffiths as well. They're going to want to be trying to get through pretty quickly out there at the moment, and we are yet to get 5 minutes of racing in underneath us, and already the AM category and the Pro category have had some seismic shifts.
And Boomey already in and out of the pits, 4.7 seconds for the Pro points leader, though I don't think he's going to be the points leader coming out of Mexico City. He's going to have a monumental task to win the championship next time out at the Daytona International Speedway. Davidson with a nice cut to the inside of Horkia, and he gets around Arthur Thurtle. Now Thurtle has to deal with William Guthrie in the Pro-Am class.
Yep, so Guthrie's going to want to get some gap here on Aiden Carter. It will help strengthen his security in the Pro-Am Championship as they go. They will now all encroach on Jacques Eva here, the AM driver who was on pole position. So that didn't take very long at all for them to catch as they now head to the Foot of Sol, which once again will prove good. There's a look then from McFarlane to get a position, and the door left wide open for Alexander Davidson. In fact, Arthur Thurtle might get a launch off of the exit and stuck over the anti-cut curb. Thank you very much. There goes the pass.
Yeah, nonetheless, Eva's now going to have to hold off William Guthrie here in just a little bit. And, of course, Guthrie going to go to the inside. It looks like Eva's just going to try and just leave that door open, knowing that the battle is not worth it for the overall position. But Eva's still going to make Guthrie work for it, heading into SS Moises Solana. And, yeah, more battling for position back there. You do see that Aiden Carter trying to hold off one of the WSR Mustangs.
Yeah, that's McFarlane. Oh, and a tag for Guthrie as McFarlane muscles his way through. Carter's going to get a great run here off of the exit as they work themselves on through. We now focus a little bit further because Ultra through. You got Coffin as well. So, sorry, that's Guthrie as they now figure it out. So move done there for Aiden Carter almost as McFarlane chucks it back up for the top 10. They're not giving it up behind, and you've now also got Tom Griffiths in there going at it with Watson and Simnor side by side. Everywhere you look, a hive of activity in Mexico.
Well, of course, these are front runners who are trying to make their way up to the front of the pack after having to start near the end. Think of it this way, Jake. If we
Eva's gone.
invert 17.
Chuck Eva's gone around. He's in the barriers there on the left-hand side out of turn 7. And so his run near the front has just ended here, Jeremy.
Yeah, he gets out in front, still loses time, and I think that he's going to get out in front of James Boomy for the time being, but that may be short-lived as well. As yeah, think of how many, if we would have had more cars inverted, how much of a mess this could have been. As Vettel and Eltria are in a battle for third place.
They are, and between them, they are really looking at this, dicing about, thinking, where can I go and gain the next position out there on track? This for the last spot on the podium at the moment. They've allowed Evdoka 3.2 seconds down the road. He's only 8/10 behind Dennis Grabowski, your leader, the former Pure Racing Team driver there in Altitude Frame colours at the moment. 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, because remember, Joe Coffin's giving himself a really good showcase at the moment as in comes Matthias Pirhinen to pit, and a change for your race lead, or it is as Dennis Grabowski then drops that one, and I wonder whether he had a slowdown penalty.
He could have been, because we've been seeing how good that Aston Martin has been here around the circuit, especially in the long straights. So Grabowski now in 2nd place. Evdoka, your leader so far. So it's pro drivers 1 and 2 with Pro-Am in 3rd place, as everybody working their way through the S's so far. But man, what a fantastic race this is. This is the battle for 5th place between Joe Coffin and Anders Mira. They're nose to tail through the S's, and one car goes wide. That could be Vettel.
It is. He got very sketchy over the AstroTurf on the outside, had to catch a slide, and because of that, he had to give up time, and as such, a position. Now, we've got a Racing Lab sandwich here, or Racing Lab bread, sorry, right now on a Joe Coffin filling in the middle of this, with Mira wanting to get through. Vettel then holding himself steady. They run onto the main straight, once again out of the Peraltada, which is the Principale, and now along this long run, the slight flick over to the left and right as you take this straight. It is now about who's got the bravest brakes into turn numbers 1, 2, and 3. It's being set up by Anders Mira, but they are pretty even as they hit the opening corner. Joe Coffin knows exactly where to hit his marks.
Yeah, it looks like Mira decides that discretion is the better part of valor and kind of holds off, knowing this is just a little bit longer of a race. We're about 10 minutes into this already, and we've already had a lot of action in those first couple of minutes as we're watching the battle for 14th and 15th down into Esse del Lago, side by side for position. One of the full tilt Mercedes, that's Michael Gray trying to go around the outside.
It turns to the inside here on Tom Griffiths then for his machine out there as he works for what he needs. Oh, and there's almost a tag there as Paddy Falconer has a little bit of a nibble and says, you know what, I am hungry for places out there in this race. So that's going to be another bit of can I go and get this move? And I will note as well, James Boomy coming in so early, he's not going to be on a one-stop strategy with that. He's now going to be on a two-stop.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he had to do a quick repair to get back on in the race. But yeah, just what a rough weekend. I'm sure that he's ready to just get rid of this and go into Daytona next week, hopefully with a fresh chance to still take that championship.
But on the off chance he needs this points, he is going to have to climb as hard as possible through this week. He knows he can't afford this in terms of what the race will offer. It is just a drop, but every drop will count right now. Colin Sansom currently in the pits as side-by-side into turn one. Here comes Anders Mira straight down the inside. Joe Coffin has nothing for that one. And soon now, look who's joined the party. Alexander Davidson, who is looking to make James Boomy pay today.
And here's the thing. It seems like whenever Boomy has issues that Davidson has been there. Oh, a little bit of a tap as we see one of the Mustangs spin. And that is not what you want to see going through turn two.
Patrick Falconer, Paddy going the wrong way around, and that there, the contact with Tom Griffiths, and it's so easily done because you tiptoe in, you think you've got enough of a line into turn two that you're allowed a bit more, and you've done all the big braking at turn one. It's so easy to switch off then for turns 2 and 3.
Well, it's almost like the axis of danger was big into play there, so no surprise we saw two cars trying to fit into one spot as we're watching lots of battles as Mira goes around Tommy Vettel for position, now into 4th place.
And you'd say that's team orders with the move like that. Davidson down the inside of Joe Coffin, who leaves the door wide open in the Ferrosol. And so the clearance is there as they now move to the Peraltada. Tommy Vettel will be worried a bit here, I think, with the way that Alexander Davidson has been driving. He has been, simply put, wonderful over the course of this race so far, and he would love to pick up even more in terms of place and position as he drives aggressive down in towards turn number 1 out there along the Principale to the S's Moises Solana, and through the Moises Solana they go. No chance of a move, but it's all about the exit, and you can see it from Joe Coffin's perspective here that Alexander Davidson battered each and every curb there through 1, 2 and 3 to give him any sort of overspeed against Tommy into turn 4 and 5 at the Esse del Lago, and he'll get the inside, but Tommy can keep his nose in on the inside, fence him out. There's contact between them, and Alexander Davidson then gets shuffled out by half a car width, and he'll lose out the place chance at the Horquilla.
Yeah, that was an interesting move there to try and go around as McFarland goes up on Guthrie. But, yeah, Joe Coffin, a nice little interested spectator in this Davidson-Vettel battles. They work their way through the S's. So we'll see if Davidson can dive deep in the inside heading into the Forta Sol. He's going to try and make a move on the inside here on the S's, and which will be an outside move, kind of questionable there as both those drivers get deep on the brakes. Vettel, nice and defensive. Oh, why Davidson goes. We'll see if that stands or if he gets a slowdown penalty for that.
Well, he'll get at least an off-track incident for it, so he'll lose 1 point of his 20 that he's allotted for that move, but he will critically get the pass. And sometimes when you're a pro driver here, Jeremy, you use them almost as, say, track extension chips sometimes. You'll say, oh, I'll save them up, and then I can use them all at the end of the race.
Yeah, exactly. You gotta use them the best to your ability as Mira goes down to the inside of Ben Altria for 3rd overall. Of course, Altria, your AM leader right now, as Mira goes into 3rd overall and in the pro class. But yeah, as we mentioned, you know, all the pro drivers are being nice and kind right now, trying to save what points and what equipment they have for the end of the race when they could really go for it and try and go for that bonus point.
Right, so let's talk something right now here with the likes of Daniel McCauley, with Ben Altria 4th, Daniel McCauley is about to move up to 27th with Brian Loynes in the pits. That is an astronomical amount of points that are being ceded by the Scotsman to Ben Altria. And Altria here might be walking today, if the drop is used here today, as either within 20 points of the likes of Dan McCauley, or even better yet, with a legitimate shot of AM category victory.
Yeah, it all depends on a lot of things, but I would have a feeling that McCauley's going to use this as a drop, and great to see, because this is the last drop race of the season heading into Daytona. Granted, you don't want to use it on the last two races, but man, what a nightmare of two races that we've seen out of Dan McCauley today.
Well, it's not just the fact, Jeremy, and I wonder if you agree with me with this, it's not just the fact that it's a bad round now, it's that momentum completely goes to Altria.
No, I totally agree. Altria now has to go into Daytona and just has to stay up near the front. We know that Altria is good, but, mistakes have cost him the season as well. So he's really got to keep the momentum to win this AM title this year.
Ross McFarlane here in P9, looking for a way past Arthur Thurtle. This would be for 8th place out there in this race as they exit the Moises Solana, and now they will look over along the Trancera to the Esto del Lago, and these turns 4 and 5 is going to be critical, as Joe Coffin and Tommy Vettel also thinking about where they want to be out there at the moment. You get nose to tail through the Del Lago, and through turn 5 the track just shuffles into only 3 wide at best, and a big lunge down the inside by Ross McFarlane. That is perfect car control there from the Mustang, making light work of the Porsche.
And we have to get around Arthur Thurtle, because he will get those elbows out and make you pay if you don't. Thurtle, though, trying to stay as close as he can to McFarlane, but I think it's going to be too little too late, especially when they come out of the Peraltada. That Porsche is not going to have any top speed for that Mustang. And with that in mind, William Guthrie right behind him, too. He might be a little bit of a challenge here in the next couple of laps.
Now, these drivers have been allotted one car change over the course of the season. Many of them have. It's because we were in between builds between seasons 3 and 4 in iRacing for 2025. And so we've seen the introduction of a brand new car, the Aston Martin, which has been out there. And there is a little bit of indication, of course, here, Jeremy, that the Aston Martin might struggle here because of its low ride height.
Exactly, because with, the talk about aerodynamics, that is going to play big into this. And while the Aston is fast on those straightaways, it has really struggled through the S's that we have here, really all 3 of them, that make up the course of this racetrack, and it makes things so much easier. Whereas you take a look at the Lamborghini, we mentioned the sole Lamborghini here of Aiden Carter. It has done spectacularly around the circuit.
I would look at 18 minutes into this hour, and I would say that the pit stop window is open for anybody who wants it out there here today. So because of that window opening up, you're trying to make sure that each and every single corner is going to work for you. You are trying to open up and say, I can manage this track, I can go and get anything I want out of it, but I need the pit stop to be absolutely on point. And the moment that it isn't around here, you really struggle, as Ben Altria then cedes the place to Alexander Davidson and just says, exiting the SS section, you're not my fight.
No, exactly, and that is no surprise here that fights are given up, and got this battle going on between Thurtle, Guthrie, and Carter as well. Here's what's interesting: it's 1 pro against 2 pro-am cars, so Carter really wants nothing but to get around Guthrie so they can set their sights on Tommy Vettel. But Vettel still up to 6th place, so the highest running pro-am car still trying to stay ahead and stay in the lead.
Well, let's just put this into perspective for you right now. Arthur Thurtle may be a pro, but this season he has scored a full 106 points less than William Guthrie.
And that's saying something, especially because we know that Thurtle has had his fair share of issues, but he's shown moments of brilliance like we're seeing here. However, those moments of brilliance have also been backed up by moments of aggression as Taylor Lane comes down into pit road.
Yep, so he makes his stop. Joe Coffin loses out to Ross McFarlane, so he jumps up and gains a position that way by making a nice pass through on the Transera and down the inside into the S8 Del Lago. Just behind that, though, is still this battle between Thurtle, Guthrie, and Carter. And when you've got the top two in Pro-Am in the championship behind, this is pretty much, I would say, one of the great tests of what is the line between Pro and Pro-Am. It's currently this.
It really is, and it's great to see. But then again, we've seen these drivers up at the front of Pro-Am. Thurtle's been further back, so yeah, this is probably a good line as you see here in this category to kind of showcase what these two classes can do. It looks like Carter tried to look to the inside, but too far away to make anything happen on Guthrie. That's giving Thurtle a chance to kind of open up a little bit of a gap, but gets closed in through that braking zone. So yeah, this is a great reason of, okay, you know, maybe one driver should be in Pro-Am who's in Pro, and someone else should be in Pro when they're really in Pro. And I think those discussions are going to happen in the offseason, especially internally with these drivers, whether or not they want to make that move up to a different category.
I think they won't have a choice, because the way that they've worked it out in this is that they do it based on an average lap time over the course of the season. So if your average lap time compared to the leader is within certain bounds for the next season, those marks will change and you will move category based on how quick you are out there. So it's not a case of, oh, I feel like an AM, or I feel like a Pro, or I feel like a Pro-Am. They look at the data and go, data says you're this, now wear your hat.
Yep, and that's true too. So it'll be interesting to see who gets moved where in the offseason and whether or not they decide to continue, because there's a lot of Pro-Am drivers, and I would say a couple of AM drivers who might be making that jump into either one or two more categories throughout into the next season, because we've seen their race worthiness, and it's been absolutely fantastic to see even some drivers in category who have improved and really have done well this season.
Tommy Vettel will let go Ross McFarlane, who dives down the inside on the entrance to the Furosol out there. So he will get through the pass and move up to 6th position. Ben Ultra will be next on that list as they make the holding pattern. I would like to note, though, that Michael Evdoka has pulled out now to 2.4 seconds clear of Dennis Grabowski over the last time over the line. So Grabowski here is unable to hold the same pace that the 989 of Michael Evdoka can do. And Anders Mira here, I think, is matching Evdoka or is slightly quicker. Alexander Davidson on 40.3s, one of the quickest drivers out there. Oh, lovely switch back in towards then the Moises Solana, and that is Guthrie getting it done, but it's not confirmed until turns 2 and 3. Gets the better line of it and manages it. Now watch Aiden Carter in the Lamborghini. He's going to get a wonderful run along the Transera. This will be to make it 2, and he tries to fight for the inside. Only a car width was given there, and now to the S8 Del Lago. It is going to be where you really go for it. That tight pivoted circle working brilliantly, but it's well fought for. Now it's around the outside of the hook here, an elbow out.
And of course, you see Thurtle's teammate Adam Watson closing in. A little bit of flash of the lights out of Carter for in 11th spot right now. So Carter loses just a little bit of position. Thought that they could get around Thurtle after Guthrie did, and not able to make it happen. Guthrie taking that Porsche and making a tank around those corners.
This is a very tough scenario out there for Aiden Carter. He knows how critical it is to stay with William Guthrie for any hope of his Pro-Am championship, and he is seeing it fading right now as if he has got a roadblock in front of him. I'm sure he now knows how Fernando Alonso felt when trying to get by Vitaly Petrov all those years ago.
Forgot about that one, as now we see Thurtle go into the pits. So that battle is over. However, the battle for 10th heats up once again as Adam Watson closes in on the Lamborghini going down the Rector Principale as the pit stops are well
sideways
underway.
car. Colin Sampson is crabbing, look at that, properly crabbing down the straight after exiting pit lane. So something's gone wrong with the car, and it does not look like his car is healthy. He's pulled it over to the side of the road, and he will take the tow back to pits.
What a weird instance. I wonder if something snapped on him and he whacked the walls. Tom Griffith is in the pits, as now we see Aiden Carter taking the defensive line, heading into the SA Del Lago, but not going to make it happen as Adam Watson moves in the 10th for the time being, takes the line through the second part of the S's, and now has 10th place in full regard.
And they're battling really well at the moment. This is where I start pointing out that James Boomy is up to 16th position right now, and he'll be eyeing up in the next couple of laps here. Michael Gray and co. as the next guy he's got to get by. He's about 10 seconds away. He has seen Tom Griffiths in front of him come into the pits, but every lap now, James Boomy is trying to go as long as he possibly can and then make that final stop, make it a short final stop so that he's not going to lose too much time in the pits, and he will be hoping to come out and chase. And at the current rate, he's doing 140.5. He'd hope by the end of this race, I would say, that he'd be eyeing up this battle here for the top 10.
And we'll see what happens here, and it would not surprise me if he does make a little bit of a rub there on the wall by Adam Watson. See if there's any damage here that affects the straight line speed of that McLaren, but so far so good for him as Aiden Carter tries to close in on the 291. Not going to make it happen just, but still close enough to possibly pop out here, heading into the braking zone. And Carter's going to have a look, but not going to do any dice, because Carter sees that there's a couple cars up ahead that if they catch up to him, may be able to help them out to get back into the top 10 overall.
Well, if you can jump into that top 10, you're going to be looking at some wonderful points. They're even looking on the bridge here, heading over towards the SA Del Lago. Turn numbers 4 and 5 out there on the circuit. Very aggressive over the inside curve, as the likes of Howard Hassan, for example, jumps down into pit lane. So now off the exit of the Hawkia, they will now look to the S's section and see where their next moves are going to be made. I also want to point out here in this that you've got to keep an eye on Alexander Davidson, because he's now eyeing up that third place position out there as we're heading towards the halfway stage of this race. He has caught Anders Mira.
Yeah, no surprise here that Davidson, who started near the back of the 18th, I should know, started near the back because of the invert, moving up to 4th place. Now it's a question of when do they pit, as several drivers have already answered the call for their first and only pit stop of this race. As still watching this battle for 10th has been centralizing between Watson and Carter.
It has been. So our focus has been here for the last couple of laps, and we've been keeping an eye out on what they have been able to do. But there is a duel of Mercedes on the main straight. Dickie Simnor on the outside. Michael Gray is on the inside. And so now who's braver as they go through? Davidson, pass done on Anders Mira. That one done then on the run to the SA Del Lago for 3rd position. But as they battle back here, still side by side it is, and we just cut away from the end of that to see Mira has lost the place, and I can confirm that Michael Gray has held the position for the moment. But on the Transera, they are now looking to see whether there's going to be a chance back. Look to the outside, then to the inside. He's weaving about a bit, is Dickie Simnor, but at the moment he's finding it a bit too tricky.
Yeah, Simnor is really trying to see what he can do to get inside ahead of Michael Gray, but Gray's been quite good this season at keeping some of the fast cars behind him. But unfortunately, may not be for too long, because James Boomy now up to 14th, albeit 8, almost 9 seconds in arrears. So whenever these two pit, that's going to make things interesting for the pro points leader. But man, this race here for position starting to lose ground as Michael Gray opening up a 3-4 car length gap on Simnor.
Yeah, and needing to do so because they've only got 10 seconds to James Boomy, who's behind. So every second's going to count if you don't want him to go by. They work into the Ferrosol with all of the stadium section. It says, actually, as you leave the stadium section, Vivir es increíble, meaning life is beautiful. Harrison Crowther hits 20 incident points. He's the first to hit a black flag penalty at halfway.
And there we go. We're starting to see those black flag penalties. Oh, he's done, yeah. So he might be done for the race after, whoa, one car off?
Yeah, that is that car off. So that's Davidson who's lost the place back. So Alexander Davidson losing the place back then to Anders Mira. So Mira has done very well to get that one again, as that was tough off the exit, and he's just got a rocket ship.
Oh, he really does. That BMW coming to life for the number 20 as he holds off the Mustang through the S's. How long will it take, or are the tires starting to fall off on Davidson as they come now onto the Recta del Ovalo, I should say, heading into Ferrosol. Yeah, I think that feeling the tires are falling off on Davidson because he's lost a couple car lengths.
Yeah, and so with Dennis Grabowski there at 1.7 seconds away from Anders Mira, with Michael Ebdocker out there in clear air, I would say you look at Alexander Davidson, if he wants to win this race, he's going to have to get by Anders Mira in the next 5 minutes. Otherwise, he's going to have no chance of chasing down that gap of 5 seconds out there to make this race his. He has done a wonderful job from 16th on the grid. It would have been 17th except for Matthias Piernen, who had, of course, a back-of-grid penalty to go and serve, and he's up 16 at the moment as in comes Aiden Carter to make his first stop of the day. He's going for the 50-50 strat.
Kind of interesting here to see if that 50-50 strat works for them. And of course, you know, you talk about tire wear. In spite of this being a newer surface, I'm not surprised that we would see this much tire wear as they close in on Dennis Grabowski. We're now watching Adam Watson and Joe Coffin back there closing in on William Guthrie also for that 8th spot. They've also got Vettel and Altria ahead of them with a lot to play for here in the second half of the race.
This second half of the race is now going to be about who can convert the position that they have been given as we work through and see running out of the Horkia corner a long train here with Coffin, with Watson, the lap down traffic of Brian Loynes, William Guthrie and Tommy Vettel. They're 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th. Then out there as Coffin has now lost the place, and looking at Michael Ebdocker, he spun! Michael Ebdocker from the race lead has actually come together with some stranded lap traffic of Benjamin Gregory, who came together with Adam Hedgecock.
And Gregory, as a result, will have a black flag. Oh, whoa. Gotta hold those brakes there as we're watching on board with the earlier leader, and he tries to avoid, just nowhere he could go.
You have to give some credit to Benjamin Gregory. He did get it off the racing surface. Michael Ebdocker jumped in, saw it, moved out, and Benjamin Gregory had also moved out at the same time. That just epitomises the luck of Michael Ebdocker this season. Dennis Grabowski's now your leader, and Alexander Davidson a free kick to try and win this race.
What fantastic luck here is now the lap traffic is starting to come into play. Going to be interesting to see if these 3 leaders pit now or if they pit later on, because they are starting to work their way through slower traffic, and it all depends on how everybody plays. But Ebdocker, for his result, has lost 5 seconds and the lead, and going to fall into the clutches here of Ross McFarlane in just a couple of corners as well. But what a change of events we've had here in this race.
Dennis Grabowski now, who started 2nd on the grid, has the race lead back once again. Your leader in AM is Ben Altria in 6th position, and he's only 8 seconds off the race lead. Tommy Vettel still leads Pro-Am, but he's in a Pro-Am battle now with the championship leader from Northern Ireland, William Guthrie, out there. They work into the Ferrosol here on what will be their 20th time through this stadium section, and looking at how aggressive they need to be over the curbs, because that's the quickest way. You don't get all 4 tyres over the curb, it works. Traffic gets out of the way as they work on through the Peraltada and onto the front stretch. That was Adam Hedgecock who's decided to jump down into the lane, but now Anders Mira will be noting that he wants a victory. He has been clamoring for one all season long, and he hasn't quite been able to get that kiss that says, I can go and make it happen. He thought about it on the brakes into Moises Solana, and it did not happen through 1, 2, or 3, but now he needs to run out of 4.
2 wiggles out of Grabowski going through the S's. That might be exactly what Mira needs, as he's going to fall right in line, heading into Essa del Lago, going to pop out just a little bit, not going to make it happen. He's going to make Grabowski sweat it out through these next couple of corners. Another passing opportunity has gone by the wayside for the BMW as he tries to get into the lead once again. Grabowski, your leader after misfortune with Evdaka spinning and making contact going into Ferrosol with one of the lap down cars, but now everybody working their way through the S's as Grabowski holds on to a scant 0.3 of a second lead into another tough braking zone.
Yeah, now onto the straight of the oval, the Recta del Ovalo, as they now hit the brakes. Now this next right-hander leads to the stadium section. 2 variants here in iRacing, the stadium section. Of course, you've got the shorter section that was run in Formula E out there, rather than just the Formula 1 style section, or the normal run through there at the Ferrosol. But still, these top 3, none of them willing to come in and make their pit stop. They are going to wait till the tank runs dry, and I wonder if Mira and Davidson have an element here of saying, look, we can save a bit of fuel behind right now. We don't have to worry too much about how aggressively we go out there for it. Grabowski again will have to look behind, because here comes Anders Mira down the inside, and he will now look to pick the run. Grabowski covered it off, a big hip check through turn 2, and suddenly Mira needs to look in his mirrors, because here comes Davidson, who was waiting, he was lurking about for anybody to make that happen. Big flash of the lights from Anders Mira. He's not pleased about it, but Davidson is, because he's up to second.
That was exactly what Davidson needed to get up through the field. Now he sets his sights on Denis Grabowski going through Horquilla into the S's here shortly. Let's see if Davidson has anything for him, or if Mira is going to try and attack back to get that second place back. Not yet as they go through the S's single file, but I would not be surprised to see Mira reel in Davidson heading down the Rucka Principale in just a couple of corners.
Well, there has been a little bit of cloud cover come across the circuit, and the track temperature has dropped from the start of this race by about 3 degrees to 27 degrees Celsius. It is November here in Mexico, and even Mexico can get cold out there as they tick under 23 minutes to go. Denis Grabowski, who of course had himself good race running in the early stages, but then spun around and also had a penalty he had to serve by the end of the race. He's now going to be looking about this going, oh, it's Alexander Davidson now, and he's got a real head of steam in that Ford Mustang. Let it just run rampant out there as he goes further from a canter into a full-on sprint, trying to work out whether he can chuck it down the inside of turn 1. I don't think he's liked it here at Moises Solana. I think he actually prefers the run along the Trancera to make it work. A trade for 4th places if Docker falls behind Ross McFarlane. No arguments between teammates, but Alexander Davidson thinking about the run. I think he's not got enough in a straight line here. He's going to move out to the inside, try and see if he can sniff a nose down in, but Denis Grabowski knows better than that, so it's well held for the moment.
And here's what's interesting is Grabowski gave him the outside line. Here comes Davidson. He's going to answer that opening there, and he's going to get the position through Horquilla.
Oh, yeah.
But Not yet. Grabowski, they're 0.00 seconds apart as Grabowski gets the lead going into the S's. Here comes Mira as well. Could he make it 3 wide heading into Recta de Ovalo? No, as David has the nose up front so far. Yeah, they're close to making it 3 wide, exiting the S's.
That was nearly a big pile-up between Grabowski and Mira. Mira then gets the run on Alexander Davidson, but Davidson holds it off. Oh, brilliant stuff between them. They fought 3 to 4 corners side by side, and it was all picked up by a wiggle coming out of the SA del Lago, and they only just solved it just before heading into the Ferrosol. Oh, my goodness me. Alexander Davidson knows he's got a big margin as Brian Loynes hits the black flag limit of 20 incidents. My goodness me, 55 might be 155 the way he's running away.
I'm just amazed that they went through the S's with no spins, no issues, with as many problems as we have seen drivers with that section of racetrack. Now Mira is the next driver who could be going up to the lead. He didn't get his chance a couple of laps ago as Grabowski really threw that Aston in and made it as wide as he possibly could. Now Mira wants that BMW up in the front and getting some clean, thin air. But Davidson right now is trying to open up a gap. He's up to about a half-second gap between he and Mira. Now 0.6 of a second. I'll tell you what, Jake, that Mustang absolutely loves the SA del Lago Horquilla complex.
It absolutely does, and it's where he's making all the time up. And I will note as well that William Guthrie has made a stop, and he has come out behind Matthias Pirhinen out there, who made the stop early, and as well as behind Pirhinen, he's behind James Boomey as well. But critically, with his stop, he has come out ahead of, he's now just behind, Aiden Carter. So those two Pro-Ams who have been fighting for the Pro-Am Championship are together on circuit now at this moment. Grabowski in third now, dropping off the back of Mira, dropping off the back of Davidson, and now with 19.5 minutes to go, surely you now have to start thinking about who's diving right, and the answer is still none of them. Ross McFarlane now on the scene in fourth.
So McFarlane trying to reel in to get involved in this race as we see Boomey trying to go around Dickie Simnor for 11th spot. What a recovery drive by the number 28 after being involved in a lap 1, turn 1 incident as he works his way through the stadium. Not able to make anything happen with Simnor, but he is able to set himself up for a good pass coming out of the Peraltada and now heading through the Recta Principale.
Well, he knows that he caught John Roberts in race 1 tonight. In race 2, Aiden Carter sent him backwards into turn 1 and across the nose of Phil Samways. Now you look at what James Boomey wants. He'd love this pass done on Dickie as he now thinks about the inside, but Dickie Simnor is the last of the late breakers out there in this series. It is very tough to beat Dickie Simnor on the brakes, and so he'll have to try and find it again at turn 4. Good enough drive there from Simnor, where I think he can hold this one off, heading over towards the Trancera and now the Del Lago chicane. And on the brakes, the SA is not going to be written by James Boomey. He's going to have to stay up and pull an all-nighter to make this pass.
And you know what? If there's anybody who can be patient enough to make the pass, it is James Boomey as he works his way through the S's. He's got to get around this Mercedes of Simnor to make something happen. Salvage whatever disaster that he had here in this early part of the race and still go into Daytona with a fighting chance to win the Pro Championship. A little bit of puff of smoke as he drops a wheel up off the ground. Contact! Simnor makes contact with Boomey as they head through the Recta del Ovalo, but once again, Boomey falls right back in the line going into the stadium.
Goodness me, James Boomey is pretty much dancing with his tournament life on his hands at the moment. This championship has been playing hot potato with two simply fantastic drivers, and even if this may be the drop round for James Boomey, he cannot afford to confirm it as that. He needs every point he can get to see whether this will give him 1 or 2 more points better than his second worst result. You get to drop 2 out there over the course of this season.
And of course, he's had a couple of races that were absolutely skunkers of a race, so no surprise that he's trying to make sure that he does not need to make this race a drop race. And you know what? Here's the thing. Simnor's making life difficult for him to make it happen. Both are running down the middle of the circuit heading into Del Lago, but neither giving an inch. They're racing as if both of them are running for the same championship. And once again, we see Boomy getting close under that rear wing.
And this is why it's important to say there is pro and pro-am racing against each other, because in many championships you go, well, the points are separate, it doesn't matter. They're all singing from the same hymn sheet. They're all playing from the same points pool. So even if it's pro versus pro-am, it means points for both championships. Again comes the run. And James Boomy this time is going to go to the outside. Will Simnor try and stick his nose? He will. Boomy locks up. And so there goes the pass again. So James again can't find a way by Dickie Simnor, who is just using every single bit of road to cover off his moves here, Jeremy.
I was going to say, yeah, that's what makes this series so great, is because you're taking from the same pot, and you're basically, any pass that you make, yeah, it's for overall position, but it's for your points in your class. Simnor being the thorn in the side of James Boomy, going down the middle of the track saying, okay, you want to pass me, you've got to do it in an inopportune line. Not going to make it happen through the Moise Solana, but another chance. We see how good Boomy is through Del Lago once again, as Watson trying to get around Tommy Vettel for position.
Yeah, this will be for 7th. Big lunge down the inside. Tommy goes round. He gets turned. Tommy turned out. And that for Adam Watson was a little bit too fast in. And it does with just such a short shoot as Joe Coffin goes by him as well. That short shoot run between the SA Del Lago and then over to the Horquilla. It's so easy to just go, you know what? Chuck it in, see what sticks.
And of course, that's when you have that sort of scenario too. So we'll see what happens here at the end of the race. We might see some penalties going into Daytona. Ross McFarland trying to get around Dennis Grabowski to get on the bottom step of the podium for Pro as they go down into Recta Principale. McFarland having such a good race, but also this helps out his teammate, the leader, Alexander Davidson.
It does, and remember, if into third goes Ross McFarlane, he can also look at making sure a pass on Anders Mira is possible. Lap traffic in front then is going to be Patrick Falconer, so Paddy's going to have to find a way to pull over on the Transera and manages to do so. But look at the run that McFarlane's going to get. He thought better of it here against the Aston Martin in front there of Dennis Grabowski. Grabowski is so confident there through turn 5. Now to the Horquilla of 6. That's where we've been noting that short run through. The acceleration, I think, more of a critical fact than top speed itself. So comes the opportunity now as they work through the right and the left of the S's. Out of turn 11 they go. Another little look here between Watson and Vettel. Oh, he got into the corner. It's a double apex right of the hairpin. It's almost a staggered hairpin. So that just leading out is always going to move out off of the curb. So not much you can do there. Adam Watson taking the tap and making sure that Tommy Vettel will have not been best pleased with that out there overall. McFarlane really trying to open up as in comes Ben Bennyworth. Still down with 12.5 minutes and no pit stops taken. This might be one for the fuel savers out there here today. McFarlane really trying to run, but again, he just does not have the top end speed to make it all happen. That Aston Martin today has been great out the corners, and say it quietly, it's been a pocket rocket.
It really has been a pocket rocket because I would have to say it's been one of the cars that has really not been affected too much by the high altitude. ironic that we're talking about this with an altitude-free Aston right now, but that's not the point. The point is the Aston has been absolutely spectacular here in Mexico City, and those drivers that made the mid-season switch, I think that they're thanking their lucky stars because some of them are having their best finishes of the season.
At the critical time of doing so. So they'll be looking at that switch going, yeah, this is everything. Dan McCauley, by the way, making a pass on Paul Smith. That is side by side for 18th and 19th places. So Paul wanted to be inside that top 20. Guess what? He's there, and he'll have to also try and fend off Howard Hassan, the Welshman.
Yeah, great showing by, a little bit of a wiggle by Hassan coming into the barrel Tata. So I guess that Paul can kind of breathe just a little bit easier going down that straightaway as that Mercedes kind of wanted to be a little evil and step out. As now we see Paul trying to close in once again on Dan McCauley going down the straightaway, but he's too far away to make anything happen yet. They'll still set him up for Del Lago.
Ross McFarlane then. First of the leaders to come in and make a critical stop. So we'll see what this will do for Grabowski, for Mira, for Davidson. It will be only a supple of fuel and going away. He was only 5.6 seconds in the box.
That's fantastic to see a quick splash and dash, and it's going to be interesting to see if the drivers ahead of him decide that they want to do it, if it was a good strategy call, or could it have bit McFarlane in the butt just a little bit, because he's now down to 7th. He's going to have to battle with Joe Coffin here for 8th.
Yeah, he decides with Ben Bennyworth to move over to the right and fend him off, as there is Joe Coffin. He is still due to pit, so that will give you an indication of what the pit stops look like, and that would mean for him he's come out 10 seconds ahead of James Boomey, and if the fuel numbers are like that, where they're only taking 5 seconds of service, is James Boomey going to be good on his one stop that he made in the opening 5?
You know what? That might be a good point, something to watch out for, because Boomey's pit stop there that he had early on in the race was a 4.6 second. So that little splash and dash might be great for the points leader. So it could have been a tragic race. It might actually save his hide.
Yeah, and just because of the battling that you've got, we're seeing just how brilliant it is. William Guthrie now with Matthias Pirhanen. Aiden Carter has got himself through on him over the course of the last 10 minutes, but Pirhanen wants to put his move through after starting 31st, this for 14th.
So great battle for 14th here, as now that starts to iron itself out as Carter tries to open up a decent gap to try and get away from them and set up something for Dicky Simnor later on again. And that's a 6-second gap between Simnor and Carter. But still, that would be for 3rd in the Pro-Am class, as Guthrie and Pirhanen still locked in battle going into the stadium. 1 to 2 car lengths separate those two drivers. None of your leaders coming into pit. By the way, the highest climber so far, Adam Watson, up 20 spots into 6th.
Well, I'm just looking around here today, and we note that maybe this is a race that normally requires a pit stop. We talk about it being quote-unquote mandatory on fuel limits, but if they all make it on the fuel number out there, my question is, do they need to make a stop or not? Because if they do need to make a stop, there are some leagues out there that put the rule of you only need to put 1 litre in the car to make sure that service, or whether it's just a case of stop in the box and go, or whether you don't need to make a stop at all if you can make it all the way.
Oh, that was a little close there. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see if somebody's going to try and go for the full no stop, or if everybody's going to try and go for a 4 to 5 second pit stop, a quick splash and dash. The strategy here, as we mentioned early on, is going to be kind of keen to see where these drivers are here at the end of the race, as Guthrie trying to close in on Carter for position overall and in Pro-Am.
Yep, so this is big in terms of Pro-Am honours, because you remember, these are the top 2 in the Pro-Am. If something happens between these 2, you're sure to know the entire of the Pro-Am division will know about it. And Aiden Carter is just looking for any points he possibly can. William Guthrie has basically marked him every single stage of the way. In comes Tommy Vettel.
So Vettel taking the gamble as well, going down pit road. And see Brian Loynes in the pits as well. Boomy now into the top 10. So with the Delta, unless something happens, we may see Boomy just stay in the bottom half of the top 10 as Dickie Simnor is also into the pit. So drivers are starting to answer the call. How many will we see dive in the closing laps?
It's a long stop for Tommy Vettel. He's still there, and through is going to go Dickie Simnor. I wonder whether he's taken full service by accident out there. For example, there is Guthrie, who's now having to both defend and attack.
And that is something I don't envy right now, as Vettel's still in the pits right now. 38 seconds on that pit stop. Here comes Guthrie to the outside. Not going to make it happen, but almost had a shot of going to the inside with prime position, as now you see Pyronet trying to go to the inside of Guthrie.
They're gonna just rub wing mirrors off of the exit. Guthrie's got command of the corner here into 7 out of Horkia, and now through the S's he commands it again. They give Aiden Carter now 6/10 of a second. In comes the likes of Davidson and Ev Docker out there, so they couldn't make it. They take their service and go, so it's now down to Mira and Grabowski whether they can last 5.5 minutes. There's 3 laps. I don't think they can, because now the Bolt's coming in. Ultra and Watson are in.
Yeah, 26 seconds is the Delta with these small pit stops, so Boomy probably going to stay where he's at. He's gained a couple positions. Oh, a little bit of a rub there. There goes the battle that we've been watching with Pyronen and Guthrie. Pyronen up 1 position. Guthrie not happy, flashing those flashers around the Peraltada as he loses 1 position.
Yeah, letting it be known to Matthias Pearson, and all the way down the straight, I'm not happy. Aiden Carter now up to 9th, Pearson in 10th, as there goes Joe Coffin, and just behind Joe Coffin, they go through. Grabowski's got around, penalty in the wall.
And that is going to help his teammate get into the top 5. So Boomy, after having a lap 1, turn 1 incident, will get into the top 5, but Grabowski is going to have to serve a pass-through penalty, as Anders Mira is your leader for now. Can Mira last and win his first race this season, or will he have to pit? The next question is, if he has to pit, can he get a big enough delta? And yeah, just once again, touching the paint coming around the S's.
Well, he touched the grass on the inside. That's what turned him around. In comes Anders Mira, so he can't do anything more than that. He did it in the first race tonight. He's done it in the second. Grabowski, well, if he has to stay out, will do what he can, and so he will stay out a bit longer. But oh my, what a moment in this race as we focus back here with Joe Coffin in the middle of this group right now, trying to deal with Arthur Thurkle and Michael Gray. A pro, an am, and a pro-am walk into a battle.
Well, here's the thing, too. Mira comes out in 3rd place overall, so about 3 seconds behind Alexander Davidson. No battle there for what would be the aggregate lead, as Grabowski still has to answer to a black flag penalty. But this battle for position here, really nice and tight around the Peraltada, as Coffin trying to hold off Michael Gray for position. Thurtle, he doesn't have to worry too much about it so far.
And also keep in mind that Michael Ed Docker is not safe from James Boomy. That will be a huge scrap in the final laps for a top 5 position too. So keep that in mind, as there goes the launch down to the inside, as just there goes the pass for Michael Gray. Nothing Joe Coffin can do about that. That's an easy pass that works itself through. And now the next phase is going to be where to now next for placement. We look a lot further back. This is Daniel McCauley for 16th place, and it might not seem like much 16th, but he's gonna need that if he knows that Ben Ultra is deep inside that top 10 in 7th.
And that's going to save his hide. He might have to use that as a throwaway race going into Daytona next week. With this being the final race, I'm sure that some of the front runners are very happy about that certain fact. but nonetheless, McCauley trying to get into that 16th spot ahead of Samways. Samways is one tough customer to try and get around. Doesn't matter where it is, but no dice here through Del Lago and setting up for Horquilla.
Now, I'm noting that Grabowski's not pitting here with 2 laps to go in this race. I think this is deliberate, even though he's got the penalty to serve in the fuel. They're going to hang him out as long as they can possibly dare. If Alexander Davidson closes, they can use him to be a nuisance in the final lap, because Davidson doesn't need to pass him to win this race, but it would cause all sorts of troubles with James Boomy trying to get through. McCauley still looking for a way to go and get that pass, and we will also need to look at what's going on with James Boomy. He's got that gap down to 0.6 of a second. McCauley to the outside, trying to get the pass done. He's going to be covered off into the Ferrosol here, the Ferrosol in towards then the mid part of it, and he still can't get the clearance.
No, we really can't with just about a minute and change left. It's still a tight battle for position between Samways and McCauley. As you see the other battle that we have below there, that is the battle between Abdaka and Boomy going through the S's so far. So 2 fantastic battles near the front of the pack. Let's see if anybody has anything going into the tough turn 1 as Sinmore trying to hold off Samways. As Samways looks to the inside, McCauley, I should say, looks to the inside, not going to make it happen through 1 or 2.
Well, I'm looking around. It's 0.8 of a second, the gap at the front, and Dennis Grabowski finally hits the lane with a lap to go. Allows Alexander Davidson then the lead. And remember, the penalty is there as well as Barney Wave. So there are battles aplenty. Anders Mira up to second. Ross McFarlane goes to third. This will now be a scrap for 4th place for James Boomy now against Michael Evdoka. And this 4th place, after being backwards across the circuit, and Sharks even with a penalty on lap 1, turn 1, going straight across the circuit. This would be the greatest recovery you could possibly see. So there is Alexander Davidson on top. There on the bottom is James Boomy. They work themselves through the Moises Solana and now onto the Transera, and there is no drive there for James Boomy as he struggles to get up to speed. He has a little wiggle and says, I concede in that because I think he's low on fuel. Now as he's heading to the end, he realizes he's short. He gives up on that. He knows he's got 10 seconds to bend Altria. So now the focus is on Mr. Perfection out there at the back end of this season as he works himself through. He needed the double to be done at Gilles Villeneuve. And my, oh my, is the mark of a champion, how you become a closer. He looks like one of the best. As he goes into this former baseball stadium here on the Ferrosol, they will stand in unison for someone better than Mariano Rivera in his prime. Alexander Davidson will drive the Peraltada, and he will be at the double. And Ditch Davidson heading to Daytona. What a sensational night for him.
That was absolutely fantastic as Ben Altria starts to dust off the broom after a fantastic race number 1. He comes around through the stadium into the Peraltada. That Mustang will come around, see Barney with the checkered flag, and take the win in AM flashing lights. It's Ben Altria, your AM winner.
And then to Pro-Am. It's not often that you say Pro-Am finishes behind Am, but Aiden Carter will just beat out William Guthrie over the line. But Guthrie marked him and knows now that all he needs are 2 finishes in Daytona to get the title sorted over the Lamborghini number 42. Some battles then will come along to the end of this race, but my, oh my, we talk about moments in championships. Absolutely world class they have been time and again.
They really have, and it's been Daytona's going to be even more spicy than you really think. Daytona, you know, it's always a fantastic race, but with several championship places and championships on the line, I think we're going to see some fantastic racing here as Tommy Vettel tries to get up 1 position. Not going to make it happen. Checker flag is out. He'll finish 19th with Tom Griffiths ahead of him.
Good battle to the end. Alexander Davidson does the double for the second consecutive meeting as he beats Anders Mira there by 5.2. Ross McFarlane will be third, and even though there was penalty for Dennis Grabowski, he was still able to serve it, so he was able to get out still in fourth place, which means that Docker's fifth and James Boomy ends up in P number 6. Ben Altria wins the AM category race here today in 7th, and that will really pull it close between him and Dan McCauley as Adam Watson is 8th. Aiden Carter wins Pro-Am in 9th, but William Guthrie marked him every stage of the way there in 10th place. Matthias Pirhinen from the back of the field would jump up to 11th ahead of Michael Gray and Arthur Thurtle, with Joe Coffin and Dickie Simnor 14th and 15th. Phil Samways would finish ahead of Dan McCauley, who would end up in 17th and again drop vital points to Ben Ultra, with Tom Griffiths, Tommy Vedel and Taylor Lane making up your top 20. Paul Smith would just fall short, being a lap down, and the first of those a lap down, as the penalties have just come through at the end of the race. He will actually be promoted up to 20th out there, as one of the drivers has now dropped down the order, so he'll be 21st. Patrick Faulkner then with him, Ben Bennyworth, Jacques Eva there, because it's Taylor Lane who has got a penalty for not serving it towards the end, so that's 45 seconds added on. And so you'll look around there, Adam Hedgecock, Howard Hassan, John Roberts, there is the last car finishing, with Colin Sansom 8 laps down. Brian Loynes and Benjamin Gregory retirees in this race, as too were Harrison Crowther and Jesse Payne Wilkins here today in this one. But we've got ourselves now a showdown coming along as we get ourselves ready for what happens in 7 days' time, Jeremy. The motorsports capital of the world, some will say, is here. It is Daytona International Speedway in 7 days. The perfect place to end a championship.
It really is, because now you've got to set your focus on racing not only a super speedway, but a very tight infield course, and it separates the legends from the pretenders. And I think that we're going to see an absolute banger of a race next week at Daytona.
I think we are. Let's get a chance, though, to chat with one of our drivers. It is a second place today for Anders Mira, who is here with us. Anders, what a brilliant battle that was in the middle of the race there. You, Dennis, Alexander, that was theatre of dreams stuff of racing.
It was probably funnier to watch than to be in it, but yeah, it was intense. I had no idea if we were going to survive it or not, but luckily we made it through and got on with the race from there.
How was it for you racing here at Mexico? Because it looks like a circuit that is very heavy on the instant limit. It is a circuit, it looks like, that you are having to deal with a bit more understeer here compared to other circuits. How have you made the practice this week and looking at trying to get these results, and clearly it paying off for you?
It's been really difficult. As always, the car feels a few tenths off. It's been all season long, so I really have to be on my A game every race I go out in it. But it was strange because I could have some laps that were really good, and then on the next lap nothing seemed to work. So the consistency was really off today. From, I don't know if it's from my side or if it's the track. But yeah, it was difficult. But like always, I've been practicing with Tommy and tweaking the setup a bit to see what I needed in the straight line against the Ford and stuff like that. So obviously it helps having a teammate to practice with.
So let's talk about what comes along in 7 days. It's Daytona, it's the final rounds of the season, and so with you and Racing Lab Esports, the entire team, what does Daytona mean at the end of this season for you? Are you going to be happy to see the back of it and looking to attack a new season, or are you looking at this as an opportunity to finally break a duck and maybe steal a win, with the fact that Slipstream is so important around there?
It's hard to say. I have to see how the car works on that track. I haven't really tried the new version yet, so we'll see. But I'll give it my best. It's that race will actually be my last ever race for Racing Lab Esports after I've been here since 2020. So that's gonna be really weird, and I'm gonna give it my all to deliver in both the driver championship and the team championship for one last time for the team. Well,
it's a real shame to see you leaving the team, but Anders Mira there joining us with 2 very strong results here today from the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez. Jeremy, final thoughts as we bring the curtain down on racing action here from the former Magdalena Michuka.
Absolute cinema. That was an absolutely fantastic race, and one that was a nice palate cleanser before we head off to the beaches of Florida and race around Daytona. You know, didn't know what to expect in this race, and I think that we got more than we expected because there was just so much going on all throughout the race. Were there as many passes we thought? No, but there was a lot of great strategy all throughout the field, and really Daytona is going to be, I think, just as spectacular.
7 days from now, you will see the championships of 3 look to be closed for the likes then of William Guthrie. He just has to confirm it with 2 drives here at the World Centre of Racing. You look around against him and say, what's what you can do? You look over to Ben Altria. He has made a late surge against Dan McCauley, who will now be licking his wounds, heading himself over to Florida. But the day has to surely belong to that car with the blue tints in the World GT Championship. It belongs to Alexander Davidson. James Boomy's done his best to recover back. Take all the credit he needs for the way he's fought back. But that guy is driving perfection right now. He'll be championship leader. And when you see 7 days from now the battling, it will be legendary in your World GT Championship finale.